The city was alive with noise, sunlight glinting off tall glass buildings, and people rushing past one another, unaware of the quiet figure sitting on the edge of a park bench. Her name was Mara Linton, and the world had long forgotten her. Once, she had been someone, an art teacher, a sister, a dreamer. But now, with her worn coat wrapped tightly around her and her hands cupped around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee, she was invisible. Every morning, she sat in the same spot across from the old coffee shop, hoping for warmth, a smile, or maybe just to feel human again. She had learned to survive the hard way. The nights were the worst, cold, long, and filled with memories she couldn't shut out. But the days offered moments of stillness, where she could watch life move on without her. That morning, though, as she gazed down the street, she noticed something unusual. A child, a little boy, no more than 6, was standing alone outside a corner apartment building. He was clutching a toy car, looking around nervously, as if searching for someone. Mara frowned. She had seen enough of the world to know when something wasn't right. Before she could even stand, a deafening sound ripped through the calm. The crack of glass, the whoosh of air turning to flame. Smoke began to curl out of a second-story window. People screamed. The child looked up at the fire, tears already spilling down his cheeks. "Mommy?" he cried, his small voice breaking through the chaos. Mara's heart froze for a second, and then she ran. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because stories like this one remind us that heroes come from the most unexpected places. Mara didn't think, didn't hesitate. She just acted. She bolted through the crowd forming near the building entrance, shoving past the frozen bystanders. Smoke stung her eyes as she pushed the door open, coughing and gasping as the heat rushed out. The stairwell was a tunnel of haze and panic, but she could still hear faint cries from the second floor. Her feet pounded against the steps as she climbed, ignoring the pain in her lungs. When she reached the landing, the flames were already licking through a half-open door. She wrapped her scarf around her mouth and plunged inside. The air was thick, suffocating. Through the blur of smoke, she spotted a woman collapsed near the hallway, trying to crawl toward a bedroom. Mara grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "My son," the woman choked out, pointing weakly toward the back room. Without a word, Mara sprinted in. The room was filled with orange light and smoke. She spotted the boy's toy car on the floor, and then the boy himself, huddled beneath a bed crying. "Milo," she said hoarsely, guessing his name from the woman's earlier whisper. "Come here, sweetheart." He didn't move at first. She dropped to her knees and reached out, her hands shaking. The heat was unbearable now. "It's okay, I've got you," she said, though her own voice trembled. She pulled him out, covering his face with her coat as best as she could. Flames crackled, swallowing the curtains behind her. She turned and ran, half-blinded, lungs screaming for air. When she burst out of the front door, the crowd erupted in shouts. Firefighters were arriving, their sirens wailing. Mara stumbled into the sunlight, clutching the boy tightly. His small hands clung to her coat as she knelt on the pavement, trying to breathe. Someone rushed forward and took the boy, his mother, tears streaming down her soot-stained face. "Thank you," the woman sobbed, clutching her child as paramedics surrounded them. But Mara didn't stay. She slipped away quietly before anyone could ask her name. Her throat burned, her hair smelled like smoke, and her hands were trembling uncontrollably. She disappeared down a side street, unnoticed again, as the cameras and reporters began to arrive. To them, the hero had no face. Hours passed. The story began to spread. Homeless woman saves child from apartment fire. It was everywhere on the news, on social media, whispered among coffee shop patrons. But no one knew who she was, no one except the boy's father, Ethan Hale, a man whose name was known across the city, CEO of Hale Industries, a man who owned towers, charities, and entire projects meant to improve lives, but who had nearly lost the one life that meant everything to him. Ethan had been in a meeting across town when his phone exploded with messages. By the time he reached the hospital, his son was safe, his wife shaken but alive, and both kept saying the same name. "She saved him," his wife whispered, tears falling. "A homeless woman. She just disappeared." Ethan didn't speak for a moment. He simply turned toward the window, staring out at the city skyline. "Find her," he said finally, his voice low but resolute. "Find her now." The next morning, news crews swarmed the park where Mara usually sat, but she wasn't there. She had wandered toward the old bridge on the river's edge, where she often went to think. She watched the sunlight shimmer on the water, wondering if anyone would believe she had done something good. Her throat was still sore, and her hands blistered. For the first time in years, she felt both alive and utterly invisible at once. She had been living in the shadows for so long that kindness felt almost dangerous. The last time she had tried to help someone, back when she was still a teacher, it had cost her everything. A false accusation, a bureaucratic nightmare, and a system that had chewed her up and spat her out. By the time her name was cleared, she had lost her job, her apartment, and her will to start over. But saving that boy, it had felt like redemption, like life had given her one more moment to matter. That afternoon, as she sat by the bridge railing, she noticed a black car slow down nearby. Two men in suits got out, scanning the area. She lowered her gaze, assuming they were police or security. But then a tall man stepped out of the car, broad-shouldered, early 40s, his dark hair slightly disheveled, wearing an expression that was both determined and haunted. It was Ethan, Mara Linton, he called softly. She froze. No one had said her name in weeks. He approached slowly, holding something, a folded newspaper, her picture grainy but visible from a street camera's reflection. "You saved my son," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "You pulled him out of that fire." She looked down, shaking her head. "I just did what anyone would have done," she murmured. "No," Ethan said gently. "You did what no one else did." For a moment, neither spoke. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint hum of traffic. Mara looked at her blistered hands, embarrassed. "I don't want anything," she whispered. "Please don't feel like you owe me." Ethan stepped closer, his tone soft but unwavering. "You deserve everything, Mara. You saved my world." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "I've spent my life building companies, chasing success, thinking I was making a difference. But yesterday, a woman with nothing reminded me what real humanity looks like." The tears welled in Mara's eyes. She turned away, overwhelmed. "You don't understand. I'm nobody. People cross the street to avoid me." "Not anymore," Ethan said quietly. "You're the reason my son is alive. You're not invisible, Mara. You're a hero." In that moment, for the first time in years, she believed it. Within days, Ethan ensured she had a place to stay, a small, sunlit apartment near the park she used to sit in. He connected her with a counselor, helped her rebuild documents she had lost long ago, and even found her a position at a local children's art foundation his company funded. At first, she hesitated to accept. But when she stepped into that art room, filled with laughing children and bright paints, something inside her shifted. The light returned to her eyes. Months passed. The city had long moved on from the news story, but for Ethan's family, the memory remained sacred. Every Sunday, little Milo would visit Mara, bringing her drawings of superheroes. "This one's you," he'd say proudly, showing her a crayon sketch of a woman with a red scarf running through flames, and Mara would smile through tears every time. Ethan often visited too, always with quiet respect rather than charity. One afternoon, as they stood watching Milo play by the riverside, he said softly, "You gave me more than my son's life. Mara, you gave me perspective. I'd like to start something, with your help. A foundation maybe, to support people who've fallen through the cracks, to remind the world that every life still matters." She looked at him, sunlight reflecting in her tired but peaceful eyes. "You really believe people can start over?" He smiled. "I do now."